Sports, a bridge that brings people together. And here in the Commonwealth, it's no different. From the gridiron to the hardwood and beyond, we all have a team we love to talk about. Now for the teams you care about, here's Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice.
And welcome into another Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio 1400 AM, and we are live streaming on ESPNKY.com. Trevor Rice hanging out with you. A busy, jam-packed weekend full of football. We will get to all three phases, high school, college, and pro this hour. Mike Matheson going to join us in the next segment, talking a lot of high school football action. A big game on Friday this past week as it was Central Hardin coming out on top 57-40. If you were in for an offensive performance, then you were treated to one heck of a ball game, both for both offenses, really, in that one. Central Hardin was down 18-3 at one point in that game in the first half. Then they rattled off like 30-some straight points unanswered. And then it was just kind of like back and forth scoring there in the second half between both clubs. And then Central Hardin eventually securing that 17-point victory, averaging over 50 points a ball game still. They were averaging 50 going into that one. I have not done the math, but now they're averaging above 50 points per ball game. And if you were in attending that game and you were a fan of offense, you were definitely given a lot of offense. Pro football, yesterday, the Tennessee Titans falling to the Indianapolis Colts. We will talk about that here in just a bit, too, because, well, when you think something good's going to happen for the Titans, and by good, I mean Andrew Luck retiring, maybe you have a chance against the Colts, and it's still not reality. It's a sad reality that the Colts are still winning, even after Adam Vinatieri missed not only what did he miss? A field goal, 2 extra points. He missed 2 extra points yesterday. He missed 2 extra points, and the Colts still held on by 2, winning 19-17. We'll get into the stats of that game coming up. Louisville and Western Kentucky in action on Saturday, and Louisville laid it to the Hilltoppers in the first half. Pretty much didn't need to do much in the second as they won 38-21, and then Kentucky falling to Florida. Kentucky was up in that game there for a while, losing 29-21. We'll look at the stats at that game as well. But first, I want to say thank you to CC Power Sports. You can find them off exit 121 just south of the Snyder at Brooks Road. Off I-65, if you want to get your hands on a new or pre-owned Suzuki ATV, motorcycle, or scooter, do it right now while the deals are hot. CC Power Sports, a short drive up I-65 in Shepherdsville. But let's get a little more in depth with some of these ball games that happened over the weekend. If you're a Wildcats fan, you went into work today not very satisfied. If you're a Hilltoppers fan, you went into work feeling kind of grumpy, kind of down that your team lost. I don't know what it is about sports, but if you are a diehard fan of a certain team, and they have a bad weekend, they end up losing, you just kind of go into work that following Monday just kind of like already mad that it's Monday. But even it just takes it up a notch or two when your team loses over the weekend. I used to face that when I was younger, and then I started dealing with sports a heck of a lot more, and now I don't get so much angry when my team loses. You can call me a fair weather fan, but at this point, I deal with so much sports, it really doesn't faze me. Maybe you're a diehard high school football fan, and you're feeling the same way going into the following week because your team just lost. We'll talk about all the area teams at the high school level coming up with Mike Matheson of the News Enterprise here in segment 2, so stay tuned for that. Let's talk college and pro this hour, though, because we've got a couple of big games that happened over the weekend here in our area. One in particular, let's start over in Lexington with the Wildcats, who took on number 9 Florida. Of course, the Wildcats going down to Gainesville last year and beating the Florida Gators, and so they kind of had that on the back of their mind, and they were like, you know what, we kind of want to go up to Lexington this year and let them know that we were not very pleased about losing at home a year ago. The Gators improving to 3-0 with a 29-21 victory over the Wildcats, who have fallen now to 2-1 on the season. Looking at some of the stats, Felipe Franks went 12 of 17 with a $174 through the air, 1 touchdown, had 1 INT in that one. Rushing yards, 1 carry for Josh Hammond for Florida, who had 76 yards and 1 touchdown. And then it was Lamicole Perrine, who had 14 carries for 27 yards and 1 touchdown in that game as well. Receiving yards for Florida, they had a little more production there as they were able to spread the ball around. Van Jefferson had 7 receptions for 93 yards, and then Kyle Pitts 4 receptions for 63 yards. 1 touchdown for Freddie Swain, who had 4 catches and 57 yards on Saturday night. For the Wildcats, who under Sawyer Smith went 23 of 35, 267 yards, 2 touchdowns, but the most important stat here, 3 INTs. You hate to see that, but it's kind of expected, right? I mean, he's going in there, basically his first game under helm as a Kentucky quarterback. Maybe a little bit of shock there. Nothing like going into your first game and you're playing a top 10 team in the number 9 Florida Gators. Let's look at some of the rushing numbers. For Smoke, he had 16 carries, 81 yards. Azim Rose had 14 carries for 46, as the rushing was okay on Saturday night. Lynn Bowden was the leading receiver for the Wildcats, 7 receptions, had 70 yards. Ahmad Wagner had 1 touchdown on the night, 3 receptions for 70 yards, and Justin Rigg had 5 catches for 50 yards on Saturday night. So a good average there for a lot of those players. Just unfortunate that the 3 INTs kind of dictated where that game was going, and Florida was able to hang on and win 29-21 over the Wildcats on Saturday night. Now, what next up for the Kentucky Wildcats? They are on the road this week as they take on another SEC team, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. That game going on at 4 p.m. this Saturday for you Wildcats fans. And they stay on the road. They take on South Carolina next week, and then it's back at home against Arkansas after a bye week in October. So that's what the next 3 weeks look like for the Wildcats in the football world. Let's go to the Cardinals and Hilltoppers game. They played that game down at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, and the Cardinals got up 7-0 there in the first quarter. They scored 24 in the second quarter. We're up 31-7 at halftime, and just never really looked back. They never looked phased really in that second half. They scored a touchdown there in the third quarter, but ended up winning ultimately 38-21. Looking at some of the stats, Malik Cunningham went 8 of 13 for a $119, 2 touchdowns. Evan Conley went 2 of 3, 86 yards, 1 touchdown. Hawkins, for the running game, Javian Hawkins had 19 carries for 93 yards and a score. Hassan Hall had 12 carries for 55 yards Saturday afternoon. In the receiving game, it was Atwell with 4 catches and a $141 through the air, 3 touchdowns. That's a pretty good day at the office, if I do say so. Marshawn Ford had 1 catch for 23, and Seth Dawkins 3 receptions for 21 yards. Not much of a passing game for the Cardinals on Saturday afternoon, but you didn't need it when you get up big there in the first half, and you could just kind of milk the clock there in the second half. For the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, Steve Duncan went 25 of 45. A decent game, not the best percentage in completion. Passed for 245 yards. The most important thing, he had a goose egg in the INT category, had 3 touchdowns on Saturday. Gaj Walker had 14 carries for 41 yards. So they really couldn't ever establish a decent running game, even though they were averaging almost 3 yards a carry with Walker. I think they would like to see a little more production in that category. In the passing game, it was Sean Simon, who had 1 catch for 77 yards, had a touchdown. Lucky Jackson, who, by the way, has one of the best names in college football, if you ask me. Number 4 had 4 receptions for 40 yards. And then Pearson had 5 receptions for 37 yards and 1 touchdown. And then the other touchdown went to Kyle Fortenberry, who had 1 catch for 3 yards inside the red zone, or inside the 5-yard line there for a score as well. So that's a look at the college teams here in the area. Like I said, if you're a Wildcat or a Hilltopper going into work today, if you were going into work today, this morning, you weren't feeling the greatest, but hopefully, a couple of days of recover time will get you through, and maybe this weekend we'll pick up another victory. Let's go ahead and look at where the Cardinals will be playing this week. They're going to be playing on the road against Florida State, a team who just lost to Virginia in Charlottesville. So we're going to see if the Cardinals can maybe take some momentum here that they've gained. And I don't know. This Florida State team, too many question marks around it. They're a little too inconsistent, both offensively and defensively, and I would expect the Cardinals to at least hang in there and possibly have a chance to win this game this weekend, because the Cardinals, if they can get up early on Florida State, they may be improved enough on the defensive side of the ball that defense could possibly help them secure a victory in the second half. That's if they get up. Now, if Louisville gets down, I don't like Louisville as a team that has to depend on coming from behind. So if they need to get up early in this one. Let's go to the pro side now with the Tennessee Titans, who once again against the Indianapolis Colts dropped another one, losing 19-17 yesterday. The Colts improving to 1-1 on the season. The Titans dropping to 1-1. And just looking at the scoring by quarter, a touchdown in the first quarter from the Colts put them up 7-0. Then a couple of field goals, actually another touchdown and a missed extra point, I should say, from the Colts in the second quarter, and then a touchdown from the Titans, had it 13-7. The Titans ended up taking the lead 17-13 in the third quarter, and then it was 6 points in the fourth quarter to help the Colts secure a victory. A couple of missed extra points from Adam Vinatieri, who has not been that good here in the first couple of weeks of the season. He missed 2 field goals a week ago, 2 extra points in this one. So you're kind of wondering, if you're a Colts fan, is Adam Vinatieri going to get out of this? Because, I mean, throughout his career, he's been an 84% field goal kicker in accuracy. Extra points, now that they're back a little bit further, that's kind of concerning, because where your kicking game has always been reliable, it has not been so much there over the last couple of weeks, or the first couple of weeks of the season. If you're the Tennessee Titans, it's concerning that you're losing to Jacoby Brissett when Andrew Luck is not not in the Colts organization anymore. That is concerning. I heard a statistic in yesterday's game where they had lost, I want to say, the Titans somewhere around like 17 games out of the last 20 where these two teams have met, and they had a string in there of losing 11 straight to the Colts. Come on. You're at home, Titans. You're supposed to be a better team than a Colts team without Andrew Luck. That's concerning. I don't know where the Titans can go from here, other than, of course, up, because you're 1-1 right now, and you kind of need to go up if you're going to compete in the AFC South division, where, by the way, you're going to be taking on the Jaguars coming up in a quick game Thursday. You don't get much recovery time after this loss. You come back Thursday, they're going to try to do. I just found out they're doing this thing annually. The Jaguars and Titans having a Thursday night game, which is weird to me, but okay. But now they travel down to Jacksonville this Thursday, 8:20 p.m. kickoff, and take on a Jaguars club who, where are they at? Well, what do we expect from the Jaguars? I'm going to be honest with you, now that they don't have much of a quarterback again, I have no idea. Then they go on the road and they play the Falcons the following week. So the next couple of matchups are really going to kind of dictate where this season could end up going for the Tennessee Titans. Let's look at some of the stats from Sunday, shall we? As we go and check out some of the stats from this game. Let's look at this real quick. Jacoby Brissett went 17 of 28, had 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. So not the most impressive yardage in this game, but it was good enough to secure the victory. And the running game, it was Jordan Wilkins who had 5 carries and 82 yards on Sunday. Marlon Mack had 20 carries for 51 yards. And then Brissett rushed for 7 attempts, had 25 yards. T.Y. Hilton was the leading receiver for the Colts on Sunday with 4 receptions, 43 yards, had a touchdown in there. Eric Ebron had a touchdown as well, 3 catches for 25 yards. Tennessee Titans was Marcus Mariota, 19 of 28, $154, 1 touchdown. Nothing too impressive either. I would like to see them go downfield more with Mariota. I feel like he would be better suited for that. You just need your guys to get open. Guys like Delaney Walker, Corey Davis. I mean, you would like to see those guys become big-time threats and have more catches than what they do per ball game, which Walker was the leading target with 4 catches and 39 yards on Sunday. Then Corey Davis had 3 catches for 38 yards. A.J. Brown had 3 receptions for 25 yards. So they're just not getting big yardage from their receivers, and that's kind of concerning because you're depending way too much, I feel like, on Derrick Henry doing anything with the football, which he had 15 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown, which I understand. You want to capitalize on your running game and really not have to depend on the passing game. But there's just some times where I feel like they just go to the running game because they don't have enough confidence in their guys getting open downfield, or Mariota's ability to complete a pass, apparently, downfield. Because a lot of their passing plays seem to be short to mediocre, like it's as far as the range goes. Like it's just maybe the most they'll go is like 10 yards. They don't ever take any chances downfield. And if you're a Titans fan, that's kind of concerning because I saw Mariota yesterday taking a couple of hits where if he takes any more of those, he's going to be injured again. I don't care how much weight you put on during the offseason. It still is not going to take away the fact that you are getting killed out on the field. He went airborne one play, took a couple of hits, and I was just like, you do one more of those, and you could be out yet again with another injury. And that's not a good thing considering this is the contract year where you want to make a statement and have the Titans keep you on as their quarterback, especially since you've been injury prone. Trevor Rice with you. It's Heartland Sports Live. Coming up next, I will have Mike Matheson of the News Enterprise. He'll be joining me here in the studio. We're going to talk all sorts of high school football from all the area teams, and we're going to recap this past Friday and get you set for this week's matchups here in just minutes. Stay tuned. You're listening to Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are on ESPNKY.com. Welcome back into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming on ESPNKY.com. Let's talk some high school football action here in Hardin County. We'll get to LaRue and Meade County as well. Mike Matheson of the News Enterprise Sports Team joining us here on the show. And Mike, it was a high-scoring affair Friday night between Central Hardin and Elizabethtown. If you were a fan of offense, you enjoyed that game. 57-40, the final score. The two area teams facing each other yet again. Central Hardin, one of those teams averaging over 50 points a ball game this season. E-Town, I thought maybe they're early, which they did. They were up 18-3 at one point, and then Central Hardin rattled off like 30-some straight points. What about that game maybe surprised you? 57-40, once again, the final score of that one, as you were seeing that game basically from the sideline.
Well, I don't think anybody saw 97 points and 900 yards of offense coming. I mean, both teams are really talented. Both teams are really good football teams. And I think the impressive thing was how E-Town started, right? You have to be really impressed with how Eatontown started. And the other impressive thing was how Central didn't panic. They just didn't panic. They didn't, try to get 27 points in one possession. They took their time, and like Coach Manley told me, because if we just got our offense on the field, I thought we could do some things, and they did. The fact that Chase Elmore is healthy and finding Gavin George and finding Dianco and finding Sean Hay, like Friday night, their passing game opened up the running game because the running game was getting stuffed in the first half. 13 carries, 33 yards, something along those lines. But they found Gavin, they found Dianco, and they just found those guys. And the fact that they are able to score from anywhere on the field, like literally anywhere on the field, makes Central Hardin a scary team. Just a really, really scary team. And I don't know what else you can say about Joe Becker. Kid's a stud. I mean, he ran for $172, 52-yard touchdown that went around the right side. He cut it back left and went down the left sideline. I wrote in today's paper, that was a great high school football game to me because of the atmosphere, the fact there's two really good teams going at each other. There was no garbage on the field. There was no garbage in the stands. Both student sections were really good. And a good high school football game doesn't have to come down to the final possession. It just doesn't. And you saw really talented kids on both sides. Really talented kids on both sides. And you saw a handful of kids who are going to be playing next year on Saturdays. That's going to happen. So it's just a great game to watch. And the fact that Central's averaging 52 a game, I talked to Coach Manley. He goes, we didn't see this coming. They're 207 points in 4 games. That's just, or 307, whatever it is, 207 points in 4. Who saw that coming? Seriously.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody who saw that. I mean, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season Central Hardin would have the best offense in our area through 4 weeks of play, I think anybody would have just said, Chase Elmore's coming back from an injury. They're not going to be that good, are they?
No, exactly. And then one of the things that Coach Manley told me that you have to really think about, like Friday night was Chase's 7th start as a high school quarterback. 7th, number 7. He played 3. He got 3 starts last year and got hurt right before halftime in the Cal game, and then 4 this year. He hasn't even played a full season of high school football as a quarterback yet.
He hasn't.
And he's making smart decisions. He's giving what the defense gives. He's taking what the defense gives him, and he's finding Gavin. And Gavin's a freak of an athlete first and foremost. And then Dianco gets wide or gets through a seam. Bye-bye. And then he's finding. And then I think to me one of the big keys for Central Hardin's offense is Gavin's finding Sean Hay. He's finding the 6'5" tight end 2-3 times a game, right? So if you want to cover Gavin deep and Dianco wide and whatever, let's just find Sean over the middle. And he's got, 8-9 receptions for a couple, 150 yards, something like that. That's a massive part of their offense right now. And so now when you start completing passes, Chase was 15 for 18 for 306. And at one point in time, hit 6 in a row for 162 yards. That's incredibly efficient. Now, once that happens, guess what happens to your running game? Dianco here, Trajan Sanders there, Kyler Lee here, right? Gabe Ramirez touched it once, went 17 yards for a touchdown. That just opens up Central's offense, and that makes them even scarier.
It reminds me a little bit of last year with Tom Brady having Rob Gronkowski and then also Josh Gordon. That's basically what Central Hardin looks like right now. They have a big tight end, big-time wide receiver. Chase Elmore's putting up some fantastic numbers right now. Is there anybody who could slow this team down except maybe North Hardin? And that's why I think we're waiting for that game to happen.
Well, I think we are. I mean, obviously, every team, Central's got to get through Henry Clay and Meade and Barron and whoever else they played before then. But let's face it, if you have nothing else to do the night that not North goes to Central, which I think is, October 25th? Is that right?
Let's check that out real quick as I pull up the schedule real quick. October 25th, you're right, yes.
So North at Central. How that game isn't – I know it's not – I know you can't sell it out but how that game isn't packed like North E-Town and Central E-Town will be beyond me. Those are going to be 2 really good high school football teams going at each other, right? And what's at stake is being the number 1 team in the district and being able to host the second game of the playoffs if you get to the second game of the playoffs. So it's a big deal.
Very big deal.
It's a really big deal, and I really, really expect that place Central Hardin has the biggest parking lot in the world, basically, and I expect that place to be packed, loaded, filled with cars to watch that game because it's looking like a clash of the Titans right now. Even though each team has to get through Meade, and Meade's no joke, but they got to get through some really good teams going into that game. But I expect that game to be just like we saw Friday night with a ton of people, like whoever was at North E-Town game, a ton of people. I expect that game to have a ton of people.
Yeah, I would expect so as well. Mike Matheson of the News Enterprise joining us here on Heartland Sports Live. Tate's Creek losing to North Hardin. North Hardin looking good on Friday night, winning 40-0. Do we see their offense starting to come together a little bit more right now?
I believe so. Coach Thompson told me that he kind of hasn't. They have a quarterback competition every week, and he's been saying it. And this week, Manny Wimberly got to start and threw for almost 303 touchdowns. And so, and he said we're going to have to rely on our defense early on to kind of before our offense really, really, really gets going. And you saw they put up 40 against Tate Creek, but again, in the end, I think their defense allowed less than 100 yards of total offense. Hello, right? You allow less than 100 yards of total offense, your defense is just point blank dominant. It's a nasty defense. I think they had 4 interceptions, which adds to I think they now have 11, 12 as a team in interceptions. They don't let you run the ball well at all. They just don't. With Beasley and Octavius and Jarrell Campbell and Michael Lunds and Darren Green and just on and on and on and on. They just don't let you run the ball. You are going to have a hard time running the ball on North Hardin's defense.
Yeah, I mean when you're only allowing the opposition to score 6 or 7 points a ball game on average,
and you're giving up 1 touchdown in 8 quarters. And that was off a blocked field goal that was ran down inside your red zone, and eventually gave up but you've given up 1 touchdown in 8 quarters.
That's pretty impressive.
It is, and you get Lavelle Wright going, and you get and the thing is, they really spread the ball out well to the receivers between Josh Moore and Ramaj Adams, and Cameron Smith and Marcus Harris. They do a nice job of throwing the ball around to those 4 guys, and then Lavelle coming out of the backfield, which means their offense is slowly coming together, like Coach Thompson thought it would, and it's going to be a very formidable offense down the stretch. Very formidable offense down the stretch. So, they're just good. And I don't know what the poll came out, but Central Hardin was 3 in the state. I mean, North was 3 in the AP poll last week, and Central Hardin was 5, and I don't see that changing. I just don't see it. So they're going to be 2 top 5 teams, Central and North, this week too.
Wimberly, like Mike was saying, went 19 of 32 Friday night, 286 yards, 3 touchdowns. I had that 1 INT, but still an overall impressive performance by him. Lavelle Wright, you got to appreciate the fact that you're not depending heavily upon him to carry you in these games, and you can go to the passing game like they did Friday night to not only keep Wright healthy, right, by giving him fewer touches, but also you find out that, okay, we do have a quarterback who can get the job done if we give him the right circumstances, the right situation, which Friday night was that. Another game that was going on in our area, John Hardin was in action. They took on Meade County and ended up winning in a tight one, 28-20. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you have to, I don't think anybody saw that coming, just because Meade had played so well their first 2 games, beating Franklin Simpson and PRP, and just done a really nice job. And I'd seen John a couple times, and they got raced against Central. Started out fast against them. E-Town started out fast against them, and when you get behind the 8 ball that early, it's hard to get going. It's just really hard to get going. That's something that didn't happen Friday night. Meade scored first. And then it could have been, here we go again. But I think Meade eventually threw a pick that John eventually took in for a touchdown on offense. Now it's 7-7. And let's face it, it's 7-7. The entire attitude on that sideline changes from what it was the previous 2 weeks. You don't look up at the scoreboard, it's 21-0, 8 minutes in. It's 7-7. And then you score to go up 14-7. So now what happens? More and more confidence. You feel good as a team. Your coach, and then you score again. Now you're up 21-7, and you're feeling really, really good. And then you're just there, and then you're just holding the Austin Opal kid to he ended up having 80 yards on 20 carries. He was averaging over 10 a carry when he came into the game. So you hold him to 80 yards, and then you make Meade County beat you by the pass. And let's face it, Meade County they've struggled passing the ball the last couple of years, and John picks up now they had to hold on for dear life because Meade County scored twice in the fourth to make it 28-20, and then they had an unsuccessful onside kick. But you got to feel, and Coach Mofield said during the week, if our kids don't take John Hardin, basically said so many words, if our kids don't take John Hardin seriously, they're going to be in for a long night. They're going to be in for a dogfight, and they were. And look, you say all you want about high school kids and teenagers, they can read. They can look up stuff on the internet. They can see that John was 0-3 and not playing very good football, and they, and a coach can say all he wants, whatever he wants, and they can talk all they want. At some point in time when you're down 21-7, Coach Mofield looks at his kids and goes, I told you. You know what I mean? I told you. You got to take every team seriously during your week of practice. Every second, everything. You have to take every team seriously, even if it looks like you're going to win 100-0, even if it looks like that, you have to take everything seriously. And that's why coaches preach week in and week out. That this is the biggest game on our schedule, so we need to take it like that. So like E-Town Central has their bye this week. E-Town has Thomas Nelson, district opponent. So what do you think E-Town's going to be preaching all week? We have a chance to go 1-0 in district because those games matter. The Central game is over. We're 2-2. Okay, now we go into district game. Those games matter because those games give you district seeding for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, kids. So now forget. Quit looking through the rearview mirror to Central. We got to look through the windshield. Look through the windshield to Thomas Nelson and get ready for that. So now John, they get the tough task this week, getting ready for North. But you know what, Coach Engstrand's saying? That win is over. We need to now concentrate everything we have on North because North is a different beast than Meade County. And so. And it's good for the kids because they now they look at the coaches going, okay, what they're telling us is right. Because sometimes kids can have a whole bunch of I don't know, can't think of the right word, but they can have a whole bunch of not good thoughts going through their head when they're getting beat 28-0 after 15 minutes of after a quarter and 3 minutes. But if you just stay Coach Engstrand is saying if they just stay the course, if the kids just stay the course, we get through every game healthy, right? We get through games healthy, and we just continue to do what we know is right. We continue to do what we know is right. We continue to do what we know is right. We'll get through the first 5 games, and then they'll get ready for their district opponents.
Which after looking and seeing the first half of this season for John Hardin, coming away with just one victory is pretty impressive in itself, considering the fact they're taking on Central, they're taking on E-Town, they're taking on North. North this week will be our Blandon Birdwhistle High School football game of the week, 7:30 p.m. kickoff, North Hardin and John Hardin, a Radcliffe showdown, and it's going to be a tough task for the Bulldogs coming off of a victory. If anything, at least they have a boost to the psyche, some confidence there after a win against Meade County. But it's going to be a tough challenge against that North Hardin defense this week.
Oh, there's no doubt. But that's what sports is. It's a weekly series of challenges or daily series of challenges. And they're going to prepare, getting ready to play hard against North, try to win a football game. And if they don't, then next week they get ready for the first district game. And let's face it, North's going to be number 3 in the state. They're a really good football team. A really, really good football team.
Mm-hmm.
And the more their offense gets clicking, the tougher they're going to be. Because their defense has this massive chip on their shoulder. They just do. They just do. For whatever reason, but who cares? They do. And they want like Michael Lunds told me last week, we want to look on the opposite side of the scoreboard and see zeros. That's all we want to see is zeros.
That's only because they want their coach to make a mistake.
Well, wouldn't you?
I'm a Midwest boy, so yes, I would.
Nice, medium, pink in the center. Oh. Little charm marks.
I saw Coach Thompson post on social media.
Yeah.
He was serving those boys up right.
Exactly, man. It's a nice incentive, don't you think?
That's a fantastic one, considering the fact that you work your butt off in practice all week long, you perform on game day. Why not have a payoff?
Exactly. And that's what, and that's, and so they'll get ready for Friday night, just like John's going to get ready for Friday night. They're going to, don't think they're not taking John seriously. Don't think that they're not going, they're 1-3. They're not very good. That's not coming through anybody's mind. It's not being said by anybody. Because Coach Thompson knows, man. Nobody picked John to beat Meade, including me, and they beat Meade. So you have to take every team on your schedule seriously.
You do.
You do. You have to take every team on your schedule seriously. You have to.
What do you, just looking at the Hardin County schools, what has most impressed you about some of our area teams, and what maybe has been a surprise that maybe are we going to see some changes? Will we see, what might change in the second half of this season compared to what we've seen in the first half? Because the first few weeks are all about getting acclimated once again to the environment, getting some reps in. Maybe some players who didn't see as many plays a year ago, they're trying to find themselves out on the football field. Looking at, we're at the midway point of the season pretty much now, the next couple of weeks, midway point of the season. Where do you see some of these teams going here in the second half?
Well, quickly, John can still win their district, and that's what his mantra is to his kids. Yes, we're 1-3, and whatever happens against North, we're going to step into our district games, and if we go 3-0 in district, we're our district champion. I mean, we're the number one seed for the district tournament that starts in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, right? So that's their mantra. Central and North, it's pretty simple. They just want to keep playing and get ready, get healthy for next week, and get ready, and then take every team seriously, and then get ready for that October 25th showdown, right? E-Town, if they beat who they beat, and at some point in time they play LaRue on the 18th.
They do, yes.
So they play LaRue on the 18th, and since I don't have any dog in the hunt, then that's going to be for the number one seed in the district.
And I know those kids for a fact, especially the seniors, have that loss in the postseason a year ago the back of their head. That's going to be a huge game.
It is. And then look what LaRue did against Campbellsville. They were down 21-6 and 28-14, right? And came back and picked up a win, 36-35. And at one point in time, it was like 3 minutes to go, they had 4th and 3 on like their own 17 or something like that, and Josh went for it. Jeremiah Belton picked up 4 yards. They had 1st and 10 on the 21 and ran out the clock. But Coach Jaggers told me they're going back to the wishbone, and we're just going to – they threw the ball twice Friday night against Campbellsville. One was a 61-yard touchdown pass, but they threw the ball twice. They ran the ball 58 times. So guess what's going to happen for the next X amount of games for LaRue County? Against Nelson County, they're going to run the ball, right? Against Bardstown, they're going to run the ball. Against Thomas Nelson, they're going to run the ball. Against E-Town, they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball, period. And they're just going to dare you to stop them. So I think they've transformed a little bit from the first 4 weeks of let's try to throw a little bit. Okay, we're going to throw it even less now. We're just going to run down your throat, so we're going to dare you to stop us. Because that offensive line is really good.
And that's going to be a fun coaching matchup, Jaggers against Brown in that game. And if there's one thing you will have to do, I would think, if you're Coach Jaggers, because I'm going to say Mark Brown is one of the best in-game coaches, not only in the area, but the state.
Sure, agree with that.
I would have to suspect that Coach Jaggers is going to have to come up with a different game plan come that week, because Mark Brown's going to be ready for whatever he's been doing up until that point.
I agree. And the other interesting thing about that game is pretty much both kids on both sides of the line are going to be going both ways. So LaRue's offensive line is going to be playing defense, and E-Town's defensive line is going to be playing offense. So the big boys up front, they're not going to get a whole lot of rest that night, because both teams goes 9 or 10, 8, 9 guys both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So including all the big kids, including all the hogs up front. So that's just going to be who can impose their will at some point in time, especially in the fourth quarter. That's just the way it's going to be, right? I looked on LaRue's thing. They played 20 kids Friday night. They played 20 kids.
Which some of those players you would have to think were gassed.
No, exactly. But at the same time, that's who they are. That's what we're going to do. So that's what you have to get ready for. And I think Central Hardin's offense, no one saw this coming. Just no one saw this coming. And they're incredibly efficient. Chase is a very smart he's a very smart person anyway. He's a very smart quarterback, very good safety. And the fact that Central's doing what they do offensively, and their defense got much better against E-Town late in the season, late in the game. They played some some respectably decent offenses, but they Central has to get better defensively, or early on, and then they're just good. And North is just good. E-Town is good. You can't look at E-Town's record and go, why are they 2-2? They lost to the number 3 team in the state in 6A North and number 5 team in the state in 6A Central. E-Town's a very good football team, by the way. Now, unfortunately, they lost Zion Yee to an injury, and we hope that it's not bad, but it didn't look good at all. So they lost a really good one. And like Coach Jaggers told me, you lose one of your two-way kids, and it's basically going to take you 2 kids to replace him.
No, you're right. Exactly right on that.
So and that's the other thing that teams have to take. That's the other thing and that's one thing North doesn't do. North platoons. So what North has an advantage of over every team in the area is that when North's defense comes off the field, and 11 guys can now huddle around and discuss what just happened. When North's offense comes off the field, North offense comes off the field, and 11 guys can huddle around Coach Hooper, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of a team in the area who gets to do that. Or when 11 come off, 11 come off. When 11 come on, 11 come on.
Yeah.
And you are able to make not only in-game adjustments, possession by possession adjustments by talking to all 11 players. And 11 players get to have input during that quick meeting, where other coaches are trying to relay stuff, right? They're trying to relay stuff from Coach A to Player B to Player C, what's talked about on the sideline, but they weren't on the sideline because they were playing defense or they were playing offense. And that's a great luxury that North has. And I don't say luxury is not the right word, but you know what I'm saying? They are able to do that, which puts them a little bit above and beyond other teams because they can do those things possession by possession adjustments by looking at each player's face without trying to relay information.
Well, it gives them an advantage because the players going into that game know that they just have one assignment they need to focus on and be good at.
Correct. Yeah.
Whereas a lot of these teams you're talking about have players, like, for example, Central Hardin has a quarterback playing on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. I understand that.
Or other teams in the area have that same thing going. So, I mean, it would make sense why North Hardin's going to have an advantage, which is why I'm looking forward to that North Hardin Central Hardin game towards the end of the season, just for the fact that I'm curious how North Hardin's offense comes along over the next few weeks before that game,
right?
And how Central's defense comes along over those next few weeks, because I feel like that if it becomes a shootout style game, I would say that the defense of North Hardin would give them the advantage in the second half of that game.
Yeah, I could see that. Just because they'll be a little bit more well rested than the Central Hardin kids, because Dianco goes both ways, Gavin goes both ways, Chase goes both ways, Kyler Lee goes both. I understand exactly what you're saying. And let's face it, if you have a platoon system like North does, and I know there's got to be a better word than a platoon system, but we'll just call it that. Then they have a little bit of advantage over Central Hardin that night, just because Central Hardin has kids going both ways. That's all. I'm not saying who's going to win, who's going to lose. Just right there, North can make some adjustments on the sideline that Central will have to relay to players to make adjustments. That's all. You know what I mean?
I guess the only thing that could be a positive about that game is we're hoping by then it's cooler.
It's not 1,000,000 degrees.
Yeah, it's cooler so the players don't, develop cramps.
So it's not a second-half cramp fest?
Yeah, because let's be honest, that just makes the game draw out another extra hour that...
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know, after you get your first cramp, how do you not get the second one or the third one or the fourth one? And as much water as you want to drink or whatever you're trying to drink throughout the week, right? Because these kids are drinking water, whatever they're drinking throughout the week to get ready for Friday night, and then they're drinking water on Friday nights. I mean, water jugs are going empty and being refilled continuously on these Friday nights now because it's so hot. But once the cramp fest starts in the second half, it doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't.
And you feel bad for the kids because they go to make a tackle and they can't get up because they're just cramping up.
Or they look to try to get that extra boost of speed for a big play, And then all of a sudden, my body doesn't want to do this right now, and they start cramping up. And the defender catches them because they can't utilize their leg anymore.
Yeah, they can't. They can't take another step. Exactly. So yeah, you hope just for their sakes and their purposes, and the sake and the purpose of all the athletic trainers, it stops being 1,000,000 degrees outside.
And for the sake of me just wanting it to be hoodie weather already. Mike Matheson of the News Enterprise joining us here on Heartland Sports Live. Look, it was hot up in the box.
It was
Friday
hot
night
everywhere. I was sweating like through it was just not. I had bug spray on me because I'm not a big fan of getting bit by bugs. And I'm sweating profusely just because I'm running up and down the sidelines trying to do 87 things.
If I sweat profusely, it's just because I'm fat. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Mike, real quick, how can people find out more about the paper and what you guys do?
You can follow us at the NE Sports. That's the Twitter handle. You can follow myself at Matheson Mike. I'm covering Central at North at Central Girls Soccer tonight. Tomorrow night, Central at E-Town volleyball. Life goes on. The paper still gets out. And we're pretty apparent. Twitter-wise. I'm pretty solid on that for the most part, getting stuff out to the people as much as I can. And pick up a subscription. I think we do a nice job with all the local teams in the area. So,
Mike Matheson, ladies and gentlemen, and we appreciate your time, Mike. We will see you at the football field. I'm sure a football field somewhere soon.
I'll be there Friday night.
Where are you this Friday night?
John North,
that's where you're going to be.
John North. Yep.
It's going to be a Radcliffe showdown up at North Hardin High School as North and John will go at it, and 7:30 p.m. kickoff on 106.1 ESPN Radio, and we will live stream it on ESPNKY.com. Mike, thank you so much for coming in, and we'll have you back in soon.
Trevor, it's always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We'll put a wrap on today's show after this. Welcome back into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we live stream on ESPNKY.com. You can go to the Apple Podcast link that I have on my Twitter account and listen back to every show at Radio Trevor Rice. Give me a follow on social media, as well as like me on Facebook, Trevor Rice on-air. The show will be posted up on ESPNKY.com, hopefully tomorrow as well, so you will have your chance to listen back to my interview with Mike Matheson in the last segment, talking about high school football, recapping last Friday, and getting set for this Friday night's action with the Blaine to Birdwhistle High School Football Game of the Week. It's two teams who are familiar with one another. I think more so on the basketball side than the football side, but we're going to have gridiron action regardless this Friday night, 7:30 p.m. The John Hardin Bulldogs will visit the North Hardin Trojans, and you'll be able to catch the action with pregame coverage at 7:05 this Friday evening, and then 7:30 will be the kickoff between those two ball clubs. You can also live stream the action on ESPNKY.com. Thank you to Mike Matheson of the News Enterprise for joining me in the last segment, as I need to get out of here. That Blaine and Birdwhistle High School Football Game of the Week happening. Western Kentucky will be in action once again this weekend. Titans back at it, so the Titans will actually be here on 106.1 ESPN Radio Thursday night. That'll be an 8:20 p.m. kickoff between the Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are trying to make that an annual thing where they play on a Thursday. So until next week, we're going to try to get Mike Keith on the program, maybe some area coaches as well. Stay tuned and follow me on social media at Radio Trevor Rice on Twitter. Back with you next Monday, 5 until 6. Have a great sports week, and hopefully all your teams win.